He said he's good to go.
We have 100
Oh,
some
all
registered,
right.
Brian. It's crazy.
Yeah, we're looking good. And guys, it looks like we are officially live. So, hey, everybody, welcome to our May 2026 FinCrime Friday chat. Thanks for tuning in. As usual, I am your host, Clayton Norman. I am the social media and marketing manager here at Serify, which is the parent company of ACFCS. As usual, I am joined by our incredible panel here. We've got Aaron O'Loughlin, our Senior Director of Training, and Brian Svoboda Kindle, our VP of Product and Programming. So great to see you guys. Thanks for tuning in. If you guys are watching today, we are going to be digging into the FBI's 2025 IC3 report. That is the Internet Crime Complaint Center, IC3 report. Fascinating stuff in there. We're going to dig into it here in just a little bit. But before we get going, I want to remind everybody that if you are not an ACFCS member, go to acfcs.org right now and fix that. There is no better way that you can enhance your FinCrime compliance career than by becoming an ACFCS member, working your way through CFCS certification. If you have not done that, your membership gets you access to tons of training, hundreds of hours of training probably, exclusive events, exclusive networking opportunities with other like-minded financial crime and compliance professionals across the globe. So go ahead and do that. Also, that will give you access to our upcoming really great trainings and events that we have on the docket. And of course, you can always review what we have coming up at acfcs.org/events to see what's coming up. And we've got some really cool stuff coming up. So in the meantime, tune in. If you're tuning in, let us know where you are tuning in from. We love to see that global CFCS, financial crime, ACFCS community tuning in. So let us know in the comments, and we will respond to those. Also, in the post for this event, I included a link to the IC3 report. We're also going to drop that in the comments. And if you would like to check it out during the conversation and come up with your own questions, your own comments, we would love to see what you are seeing in the field that's reflected in the report. Check that out. Let us know how that's looking or what questions or issues that you see, and join the conversation, because this is a really good one. And I'm going to Slack our guy Eddie the IC3 report. Eddie, that's in our State Your Case Slack channel. If you want to grab that and drop it into the LinkedIn comments, so anybody who wants to check it out can do that. Highly encourage everybody to take a look at that. And instead of doing our regular headlines today, we are going to pull out some of the key points from the IC3 report that were highlighted and discuss those just a little bit, because there is a ton of overlap with those with things that we have discussed on these FinCrime Friday chats. So let's hop right into it. Aaron, we're going to go straight to you. This one that was highlighted is the DOJ expands crackdowns on Southeast Asian scam centers. The Department of Justice announced continuing efforts targeting organized crime groups operating scam compounds in Southeast Asia that facilitate large-scale cryptocurrency investment fraud schemes targeting Americans. The IC3 report highlights the DOJ's Scam Center Strike Force and its partnerships with OFAC, FBI, and the Secret Service. And again, a reminder that this report is documenting reports from 2025. So we're looking back a little bit. But Aaron, this is definitely one that we have covered a lot in these chats. What's your take on this being highlighted in the IC3 report?
Well, I first want to say thanks for, continuing to keep us on this journey, Clayton. Every month, you're always getting after Brian and I to go, what are we talking about this month? Without you, this would not be existing at all because we have so many things going on and not enough of us to keep up with it. So really appreciate you bringing this and saying this is something we should highlight. So I actually want to ask the crowd here if they've heard or are super familiar with, because I hadn't been until the last couple of weeks, the Scam Center Strike Force. If any of you were familiar with the Scam Center Strike Force in the U.S., what this administration has put together, go ahead and throw us in the chat that you knew about it, you work closely with them, that you'd love to tell us more about it. I'd really love to hear from folks out there right now because I am just really digging into this and I think it's incredible. So for those that you don't know, it's the Scam Center Strike Force was created. It sounds like something out of a Marvel movie or DC. Yeah, I'm actually here for it. I think it's great. The Strike Force was created to disrupt the Southeast Asian scam center networks targeting Americans. So that's where the American angle comes in on that one. So scams compounds, they're central to the mission for them to be able to do these things, right? But the Strike Force is not limited to like raids or prosecutions or physical compounds. It targets the broader operating system, like the leaders, the recruiters, the technology infrastructure, the fake websites, the crypto laundering channels, and assets that can be seized and then returned to the victims. So I think that's just an incredible task force to be a part of. And so I'm really glad that they're doing that. And so with that, there's been a bunch of successes that they've had. And I'm actually not as familiar with how long they've been operating. So if you want to throw that in the chat, I would love to learn that. But they announced this one particular one. There have been a number of successes and people they've been going after, groups they've been going after. This one in particular, they announced 2 Chinese nationals on this particular one that were operating scam centers and defrauded Americans of billions of dollars that were run out of Burma. So 2 Chinese nationals running out of Burma. The criminal charges against them accuse them of helping to run a cryptocurrency investment fraud compound in Burma, and the trafficked workers were allegedly forced to scam victims under threats of violence. I mean, it's not actually all that unique of a headline because it read like a lot of the others. The DOJ discovered the announcement, they announced the seizure of a Telegram channel, and that Telegram channel recruited people to come to Cambodia, and then they would seize their passports, and then they would force them to try and scam anybody, not just Americans, but the ones that the DOJ was focusing on were the American accounts, and they were able to identify and seize more than 503 fake investment websites. They stole cryptocurrency. Yeah, fake investment websites that stole cryptocurrency from U.S. victims. And the authorities restrained more than $700 million in cryptocurrency allegedly tied to this money laundering. That's incredible. $700 million. And part of the task force, I guess you could say, mission statement. I don't know if there's a mission statement, but part of it is to give restitution back to those victims to get that money back. So I'm still hearing a lot of folks say, well, it's crypto. You lost it. Can't get it back. Well, this Scam Center Strike Force is actually showing that it's not impossible. So we love seeing these headlines and we hate seeing that this is happening to people, first of all, but love seeing that people are able to get their restitution, get the money back at some way, and then be able to, unfortunately, learn a lesson, but hopefully not fall into this again.
Ooh, all right. That's a great analysis, Aaron, as usual. Thank you. And certainly anybody who's tuned in on these over the past year will have heard similar points, because that is one that continues to be a big player in the financial crime scene in 2025 and 2026. Brian, on to number 2. This is also one that we've talked about. I think we even had a dedicated FinCrime Friday chat. But number 2 is elder fraud. And in 2025, elder fraud continued to surge. The IC3 report shows that a 37% increase in elder fraud complaints and a 59% increase in losses year over year. Americans over 60 reported $7.748 billion in losses, with more than 12,000 victims losing over $100,000 each. So again, this is from 2020. These are reports that were received in 2025. I know this is a topic that we've covered. Brian, what's what do we make of this from 2025, and what does it tell us about 2026 for elder abuse?
I mean, I think the biggest takeaway is it tells us that it's bad and rampant, right? And you're right. This is in many ways, a backward-facing report, right? It's looking at activity that's already occurred. But that said, I don't think anybody out there feels like this has gotten better per se. So, if anything, these numbers are probably now getting worse.
Right.
I mean, on the elder financial abuse side, one of the interesting takeaways from the report, and I might be getting a bit ahead of myself, was that almost every category of fraud targeting elderly individuals was up, right? So there was more investment scams, there's more tech support, there's more government impersonation scam, there's a lot more romance scam, and it was something like literally across the board, extortion, et cetera. Every single category had increased. I think that's true in other age brackets too, but it's definitely true in the elderly individual age bracket. One thing that I think is disappointing is the fact that points to a failure of awareness raising measures to some degree. Not that there hasn't been great work done to raise awareness among elderly individuals and folks in general out there. I think where it falls flat is the specificity, the in the flow of transaction aspect of a lot of the awareness raising, and the adaptability of the financial criminals, which we'll get into. So I don't want to be disheartening, but these numbers are in fact disheartening in a lot of ways, especially on the elder financial abuse side.
Can I add a little bit on the elder stuff? I'm actually in Atlanta right now, so I have a different background and all that. I'm actually helping out my elderly parents, 83 and 85, due to a fall, a little quick family emergency. And the thing that I've noticed, I'd love to get anybody who here in the comments, my dad's phone is ringing a lot, his cell phone. He's 83. And I keep seeing the spam risk on there, and I take the phone because I hear it first, and I look at it and I say, "Oh, Dad, you shouldn't answer this." And he said, "Yeah, you don't understand. Now that your mother's been in the hospital and now she's back, there's a lot of doctor phone calls coming in, and 3 of them said spam risk, but they happen to be the hospital getting back to us. So I have to answer these." Oh my gosh. My question is, what can we do about this? Is there anything that I want to ask the audience? Let's brainstorm. What can I tell my 83-year-old dad to do? Because my general first thing is like, you shouldn't answer these. Just let it go to voicemail. I did tell him if it's a hospital, let it go to voicemail. They'll leave one and you can call them back. And then that's not really worked out so well either, because these people in the hospitals are busy and then they're not there. And then he's playing back and forth catch up, and it's causing him more stress. And if anyone has any ideas, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I will say on the individual level, it is possible to whitelist certain numbers once they're from known good callers, right? But from the that's only going to get you so far, and then systemically, that's not a solution. I mean, I think the wider solution, as we've talked about a lot on these sessions, is like, we need to expand the responsibility to fight fraud and scams beyond the banking and financial institution space, right? It's just not, it started, but it's not gone nearly far enough into the telecommunications and tech infrastructure where these scams actually originate. So,
I mean, it's a conundrum. What do you do? You can't be totally disconnected from the world, but every point of connection is also a point of weakness, right? Or an opportunity for the scammers. I saw a really great question from Ahmad, and Ahmad, we're going to put a pin in that for just a second. We'll get to that one after we get through this next point. So our last kind of pull out from the report is that, again, in 2025, cryptocurrency fraud remained the largest driver of losses in the US, or that were reported to the IC3. Cryptocurrency linked crimes accounted for more than 11.3 billion in reported losses, with crypto investment scams alone generating over $7.2 billion in losses. So vast sums tied up in crypto scams. I'll open it up to both of you guys, if you want to weigh in on that.
I'll just have to say is crypto everywhere is crypto. No, we've said it. Brian and I have said it for years. When there's someone in a financial institution or someone is telling us a story about their boss saying this in a financial institution, saying, we don't bank crypto customers. We don't bank crypto. We've been saying bull hockey for years. Yes, you do. You do. IC3 shows that it's prevalent. It's everywhere. And it's not just a matter of seeing the crypto name and the ACH transactions or the wires that come in and out. It's not just so much a matter of know your customer, if there's a licensed or unlicensed exchange coming in, trying to be a customer to bank with your financial institution. It's a matter of the behaviors of the customer and being able to see all this cash coming from an 83-year-old's account who didn't have this cash before. I wonder what's changed, and maybe reaching out to them might be able to figure out what's going on. Are they taking that cash to a crypto ATM? Probably, considering IC3 report talked about elder fraud on the rise exponentially. Maybe, you don't know, but it's a matter of reaching out, but it's everywhere.
Yeah, I think for the first time in the report, cryptocurrency, like reported losses tied to crypto, were the majority. It's 54% in the report. So that tells you how far we've come in terms of crypto used in fraud schemes. The other thing I found interesting reading the report was the way in which the crypto or digital asset space more broadly is interconnected with, kind of, Aaron, to your point, with the traditional financial sector, right? It's not like some, dark net marketplace where you're buying and selling malware and et cetera with like Monero and privacy coins, right? Cryptocurrency is moving between fiat and then back into fiat and then back into crypto. It's part of the system now. And stable coins are going to take that even further. But the fraud, the IC3 report makes it very clear that this is already the reality, right? These are not separate worlds. And so, it's incumbent upon everybody out there to have some level of familiarity with digital assets.
Okay. All the more reason for anyone here who is tuning in to check out the DAX course and get your digital assets compliance specialization sewn up so that you know how to connect all of these dots between the regular financial institutions and crypto and other types of digital assets, and how to kind of keep an eye on all of those things. So again, you can find that at acfcs.org. Look for DAX. Also, if anybody else, I think we've got some people who have already completed the DAX who are tuning in today. And if you have done that, let us know in the comments what you thought about it, what you learned about it, and how you're applying it as you go back to work. Also, we've had some, in response to Aaron's comments, we had some really great comments come in. Shauna said there's a call screener. And then Trina had also a really good strategy. So answer, if they claim to be anyone asking for information or anything like that, hang up, call them back, then you can verify that. Right, it could be a bank or the hospital, and you can call them back. That's also, I think, a good approach, although maybe a little bit trickier with healthcare, where, as Aaron mentioned, they can be busy, it can be hard to get through, or you end up, listening to music for 45 minutes. And then Barbara mentioned that's another angle that healthcare providers actually need to take some responsibility on and be aware of and address as well.
Thank you for those comments, everybody. Appreciate it. I'm actually going to make note of them. Yep.
So those are good ones. Thank you. And again, if you've taken the DAX with us, let us know what you're thinking about it and what you're seeing out there now that you've got that new perspective on digital assets. So, okay. So as we've already clearly shown, the IC3 report shows that financial crime is not just a niche cyber issue. It is now mainstream operational compliance and reputational risk issue for any financial institution. Some of the big takeaways I think that we will go through in this report is that the IC3 received over 1 million complaints in 2025, and now averages, and this is just mind-blowing, averages nearly 3,000 complaints a day. Reported losses in 2025 were $20.87 billion which was nearly double from just a few years before that. Cyber-enabled fraud accounted for around 85% of all reported losses, and investment fraud generated around 8.6 billion in losses. The IC3 recovery asset team helped freeze more than $679 million, achieving a 58% success rate on attempted theft recoveries, which 58% sounds like a pretty incredible number. Maybe not excellent for the 42% who didn't get anything back, but to me that seems pretty impressive. And I think this is also a very interesting one. AI-related complaints tied to investment scams exceeded 4,300 complaints in 2025, while AI-related losses approached $900 million overall. So I think it's pretty clear financial crime compliance teams, are dealing with industrialized, tech-enabled fraud ecosystems rather than isolated scams. So with that as our context, we'll jump into our discussion. And Aaron, were you going to take number one, or is Brian
Sure.
on
Yep.
number one? Okay. So the first question, what does the IC3 report tell us about how financial crime has evolved from traditional fraud into organized cyber-enabled fraud ecosystems?
Well, you just said it, moved. That's the word, or evolved is part of the question, part of the answer. It's evolved, and it's definitely beyond the one-off fraud events. That's for sure. We're now looking at organized. Well, we have been looking at organized cyber-enabled ecosystems for years. But man, seeing it in those graphs that you pulled out, and the IC3 report is 66 pages, by the way. So some light reading for y'all over the weekend. Just want to put it out there. There's a lot of really good graphs, and putting these terms and all these numbers into a picture is what I need, and it's all throughout the report, which is great. So you'll see how these numbers go up. You can see how it evolves. They've gone from messaging apps, fake websites, spoofed identities. They've got crypto rails. They've got call centers. They've got mule accounts. I mean, it's an industry that I couldn't even imagine had I tried to come up with it myself, having never heard of any of this. Maybe Hollywood could have done it, but there's no way I could have done it. And so it's absolutely evolving to a way that, are we keeping up? I don't know. I have no idea if we are. The recovery rate sounds really good, but does that mean that we're keeping up, or does that mean that it's lagging? But at least we're trying. We're doing a really good job at trying to get that back and playing catch up. And then, of course, the investment fraud stuff is just the clearest example of that, of how we're evolving as investment fraud. I mean, that has taken off just the last this year alone. I think I don't know, Brian, have you heard more about investment fraud when people are talking to you with speakers and in our sessions and stuff? I've heard it more this year than I've ever have.
Yeah, I think investment fraud has been driven by a lot of the trends that we'll talk about throughout this session, right? Like, you're able to spin up convincing looking media across the board, whether that's deepfakes, websites, annual reports, required SEC disclosures, whatever you need using generative AI. And you can do it extremely convincingly and extremely quickly. So, investment fraud has gotten very difficult to detect through the traditional means, especially as the financial world has gotten, I'll use a technical term, pretty weird for like your retail consumer, right? Like, you can bet on a prediction market on, all sorts of world events. Will this happen, or will so-and-so team win the NBA playoffs, right? That's pretty weird. That's not something that you could do before. So when someone approaches you with a investment opportunity, the vetting aspect of it in an online world in which all sorts of relatively odd financial investment opportunities have very recently been created makes it much more difficult, right? The vetting processes that we used to rely on have kind of gone out the window in terms of like, does it pass the sort of smell test? And did you read their website? And does it have this information on it? And can you download the documents and prospectus and trading strategy, whatever? All of that can be A, faked, and B, not look anything like it did in the past. So, it's even beyond digital assets at this point. Digital assets have been the main tool of investment scams, continue to be like the underlying mechanism, but the investment scam poses as all sorts of different things in this new weird world now. So, AI driven trading strategies, proprietary algorithmic trading, tokenized commodities, you name it, all of which are real, right? These are real things. But they are also new things. They are things people don't understand, and they are much more difficult to vet. So again, I think it goes back to some of the conversation we're having around like advice to both our customers and maybe the people in our lives, right? Like in terms of awareness raising and in terms of protections, we need to move a lot more faster and be a lot more specific. Than what we've maybe done in the past of like the blanket, if you see something, say something style, fraud awareness training, right? A lot of the research and the research I've seen has actually been pretty limited. A lot of the research in this indicates that, the more granular, the more specific within the flow of the transaction you can get, the more likely you are to cause someone to pause or interdict, right? So rather than say, scam warning, this transaction is indicative of scam, say, hey, this transaction looks like other individuals in Philadelphia, I'm in Philadelphia, so we'll pick on Philly, in Philly who have fallen victim to a crypto investment scam in the last 6 months, right? So then it's like, now it's about me, and it's much more hard to ignore. And that's, much easier said than done. But assuming you can get that data and build those types of consumer, awareness and messaging, you're going to, I think, be more successful.
And when you say it's on me, which I really like that part, but it's also a handshake. If there's a way that we can have a handshake and a partnership as the FI industry and as the customer, whether they're young or old or in between, like myself on the verge of old, being partners in making sure that we're not falling victim and our firms aren't falling victim to all the loss of the money to these fraudsters, to these organized scam compounds, to these people making all this money just sitting there on the backs of people. So if we can understand the journey, the customer journey, like I mentioned earlier, leading up to the transaction, like the relationship building, the account changes, the unusual activity or the payment behavior, and the urgency and coaching, that together it's not just on you, I think it's on all of us. More of a partnership. I think I want to push for the rest of 2026 in our trainings. I just came up with it. I didn't think about it earlier, but if we can have more of a partnership to fight the bad guys, I think that would be great.
Yeah. And I think, the encouraging thing, maybe, I don't know, you can look at it two ways. That when they ask people like for these trust studies, right? Like, who do you trust? The government, tech companies, etc. Financial institutions have the trust across the board and everything has declined in the last 10 years or so. But financial institutions still rate really highly, sometimes at the top of the who do you trust. So when they ask folks out there, they still trust their bank, to protect their money, keep them safe, tell them the truth, right? So that's good. Like, that's good. We shouldn't lose that trust. And the more engagement we can do with customers at the right targeted level, the more we can do to preserve that remaining trust that's still out there, right? Because, honestly, while you want folks to be skeptical and to, see everything with a sort of jaundiced eye, the lack of trust in and of itself can create opportunities for scam risk. And scammers will exploit lack of trust in addition to too much trust in order to perpetrate scams.
And the trust issue is like a snake eating its own tail at a certain amount,
like
right?
that.
Got to have the right level, but not so much that you can't trust anything, so you'll fall for anything too. And Aaron, I'm reminded of our recent conversation with Pete Stoffler on the State Your Case podcast. I'm sorry if I'm saying his
I think it's
name.
Cephal. I think
Cephal, yeah.
Yeah.
Which was just fascinating about the psychology behind victims of scammers and how giving some agency back by asking kind of the leading questions that empower them to recognize and realize something's fishy is going on here. He was talking about it more in the context of someone who's already been scammed once, or actually in his case, 2 different times, got sucked in 2 different times, but front loading some of that, like with our parents, with elderly people that we know, or young people who are first getting into, being able to access financial institutions and systems, to front load some of that, either skepticism, lack of trust, being skeptical, but not so much, like we just talked about, that you're kind of paralyzed. Anyway, if anyone's interested in the psychology of scams and how to break the hold that scammers have on people, I cannot recommend that conversation on the State Your Case podcast enough. And of course, that is a member benefit. You can find it on your learning portal if you're a member.
Can I real fast on that one? The psychology of talking to scam victims. Pete talks about how in the UK, it's where he is. In the UK, they have a program where they have financial institutions partner up with retail locations, the drugstores that we call them here in the United States, like the Targets, the Walmarts, the CVSs, the Walgreens, that sort of thing. And they will actually have a community program where they will go in there and they will train the cashiers and managers and other employees there to say, have you seen certain things that people are buying? This might be indicative of the following things we see in the banks, and they might be victims of this, or that. And because of that, that woman had gone in there and she was buying these cards, these prepaid cards, and then she wanted to use a Bitcoin ATM or something like that right around it, or she wanted to purchase something there at the cashier. I can't remember the full thing, but then the lady who's a cashier, I think she saw her 2 or 3 times, and finally she said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't sell this to you." And she was so soft and compassionate and said, I would really want to send you to across the street to the bank that's there that trained us. We're seeing the following things. Could you please talk to them? It's our policy to not allow our customers to fall victim to certain things. And she was trained on what to say. And she walked into that bank a little bit more open. And then Pete was able to sit down and ask her questions. It's a great story. And I love the program. I'd really love to see if we can get that going here in the US. I don't see why not.
Yeah, me either. Also had some great comments from Trina, who said, you can also engage with certain programs and perform due diligence on addresses or Reddit. So a little bit of extra due diligence that you can encourage people in your life to have. And again, think before you click, think before you invest, think before you do anything. Stop and do a gut check. Trina, I think that one is great. Yeah. And again, so easy, but that if it feels too good to be true, that's something a little extra to pay attention to, I think. So thanks, Trina. Those are excellent additions. So I think this one goes back to Aaron now, but Aaron, the report repeatedly references crypto in fraud schemes. So how is it that AML and compliance teams should be rethinking or thinking about crypto-related risk and crypto-related risk monitoring?
I think I sort of touched on it a little bit in the beginning, where when people say, "Oh, we don't bank crypto," no, it's not just not that. It's also not just a narrow crypto customer issue anymore. The report shows that it's now woven through many different types of fraud types. You've got, Brian and I talked about the investment scams. We've got tech support scams. We also have government impersonation, as you mentioned earlier, AI, romance scams, extortion, employment scams, recovery scams. So now, as we have said for years here at ACFCS, and I said when I started realizing and learning what crypto actually was and is, it's not just this, crazy high risk thing. Now it's embedded into our institutions. And now it's just another form, another way to carry money to and from each other, right? Well, when you have money going to and from human beings, you're going to have fraud and money laundering, criminal activity in there. It's not going to change. I wish our human nature would, but it's not going to. With that, we have to make sure that we're looking at it in my background investigation days, like the whole person concept sort of thing. I look at it as the whole money concept. It's just another platform. And it means that institutions need to be looking for crypto intent and not just the exposure. as I mentioned before, the behavior of the senior citizen who pulled out money, the cash. Well, you're not seeing a crypto exposure there. So, oh, well, we're done. It's just cash coming out. Maybe not. Maybe engage that elderly person or the young person to say, what's going on? This is a weird thing. If it's your policy in your institution, maybe it's a weird thing. Why is money moving? Why are you taking out loans? Why is money moving in unusual increments? And they could have a crypto exposure on the other end, because now you have a crypto customer exposure. It's not just inside your bank. So it's everywhere. So just being able to see it on a full scale and not just, oh, this transaction, that transaction, it's now a part of our society. So I firmly, this is just my opinion, firmly should be looked at that way as well.
I think that is a pretty great response to that question. Okay, Brian, BEC losses still exceeded $3 billion in 2025. Why do social engineering schemes continue succeeding despite years of awareness campaigns and even kind of the same kinds of conversations that we're having right here? What do you think? Why is it so hard to get over that hump?
Yeah, I will eventually get to that question. I promise. But first, I'm going to answer some kind of connected but unrelated questions. I mean, one of the things that's important to know about the IC3 report, and I think we've kind of touched on it, but it's worth reiterating. IC3 is the Internet Crime Complaint Center, right? So these are all the information that is in this report is based off complaints that have been gathered by this web portal that the FBI runs. What that means is that there's a whole universe of activity, and in fact, a lot of indicators that all of these numbers and losses are in fact underestimated. And just as one example of that, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is another kind of government-backed. It's not actually a government agency, but it's a nonprofit agency. But it is a reporting, and it is another entity that gathers complaints and reports about sextortion. The IC3 report has a lot of data about extortion, and it says that extortion, financially motivated sextortion, sexual extortion through sexual explicit images of minors, they got 5,000 complaints. The NECMEC got 50,000 complaints in the same year. That is a 10x difference between that, right? That is not included in the IC3 data. So clearly, the victims of, and this is, not just sextortion, this is investment scams, etc. There's a whole universe of victims that never report, or they report to the local police and they don't have the capacity to handle it. It never gets to the IC3. So this is a snapshot. The numbers are bleak, but they're probably a lot worse in reality.
You're a hit at parties, Brian.
Yeah, I know. I'm real Debbie Downer on this one, but I think I just think it's important to keep in mind, and it's also important from, again, an awareness raising measure and a sort of like societal impact measure. We think about our role as like financial crime professionals more broadly. Like, there's a lot more we need to do to get this information about even just the basic report to the IC3, and don't feel embarrassed about it, out to the general public, because when you see those discrepancies like that sextortion of minors discrepancy, it's really kind of stark that there's underreporting here across the board. On the note of sextortion, well, we're talking about a lot of different topics here. Sextortion was in fact the largest category reported of cyber fraud reported on the IC3 report. 45,000, like single one, 45,000 for sextortion, something like 18,000 for investment scams, 10,000 for employment scams. So sextortion was very large, 75,000 complaints versus 34,500 some for the previous year. So it is a major fraud category, I think, and it is a very, very damaging one, especially when targeting minors. I think it's one that is maybe less talked about and people are less aware of, including customers. And it is one that spans a lot of age groups. It goes from children all the way up to 65 plus, traditionally elder folks. So, I just wanted to flag that and highlight that as one area, that I would say needs a little bit more focus. And then last thing before I finally get to the question you asked, which I believe was related to business email compromise, the recovery numbers, the recovery asset team, charmingly called the RAT.
Rat, yes.
They run this really cool financial fraud kill chain. It's mostly focused on domestic and international wire transfers. So that 58% success rate is only incidents that made it to the financial fraud kill chain. It's not like the universe of complaints in the IC3 report. So it's a very limited subset of 39,000 complaints that qualified, met the criteria of the kill chain, which generally means like 72 hours. You have to get it to them in 72 hours or less to initiate the kill chain. And it's mostly about wire transfers. So like business email compromise, hey, we finally got there. Very much a good candidate for the financial fraud kill chain because it's still mostly wire transfers. Crypto, unfortunately, a lot trickier. Not really, there are some like Tether will freeze even without a court order in some instances. Circle will freeze with a court order, so you can actually freeze stablecoins. You can do like a stablecoin kill chain. Other crypto that's like Bitcoin, Ethereum, public ledger type stuff, much more difficult. But back to your business email compromise. Why is it still happening? And why is it still so prevalent? Because you can get a lot of money from one target. That's the short answer. And you can again use AI. You can be very specialized. We had a speaker on a webinar recently who was talking about how there was a scam compound. She was in law enforcement. She was on the ground in one of these scam compounds that had been broken up. It was a cooperative effort among the Thai police and the FBI. One floor of this multi-level scam compound was dedicated to targeting the Coldwell Banker Realtor network for business email compromise fraud. Not like realtors in general, not realtors in the US, one company, and a whole floor just for this one company in a large scam compound. So It's gotten very specialized, very niche. And it's because it's highly profitable if you can hit that one transaction. So even though the spamming, spam controls have gotten better, awareness raising has gotten better, it's just a profit-driven industry, and so it's it's the arms race, right? So yeah, I think I finally answered your question, and I will stop answering other unrelated questions.
That's a good one. I think it ties into what we were talking about earlier with the phone calls and sort of elder protection. We're just so inundated with the volume of phone calls, of texts, of emails, the opportunities for those openings for scammers to get in there are so prevalent and so numerous in our daily lives that you almost can't go through your day without being exposed to some vector for scams or fraud in some way. It's really pretty fascinating. I think this conversation really drives a point home in that. We've got some really great questions from our viewers that I want to make sure that we get to. And we had Ahmad from Iraq earlier, and thank you for being patient, Ahmad. We're getting to the question like I promised we would. He says, hey, this is Ahmad from Iraq. How can AML teams better leverage IC3 findings to improve the detection of fraud-related suspicious activities? So what are we doing with what we've learned from this report and this conversation?
Well, I can do a little bit of that one. And then, Brian, if you want to bring it home or something. So the first thing I think of when I hear that question is when you're looking at reports such as the IC3 or any other government agencies, even the FIU in the Middle East, Middle Eastern countries and their jurisdictions, look at theirs as well to say, what are you seeing? And when you see something like, and this kind of actually ties into the question, I think we had a question here about Dawood asked about which financial crime typologies has shown the fastest growth of the last 2 years. So if you see something like that, you'll see these reports and you'll say, oh, well, for instance, the cryptocurrency fraud is the highest growth over the last, say, 2 years or so. It's increased about a 48% jump and you can see that. So when you're seeing things like that in a big graph or reports and macro level type of stats, then you can start looking at micro level type of transactions. The more micro level type of transactions you're seeing that fit that macro level description, you're going to start seeing the trends in your own financial institution. And that's how I did it when I was an investigator at FIs.
Learn how to see it so you can't unsee it.
Yeah. I did 2 questions with 1 answer. So there you go. Boom.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, it's use this report to see like what was happening, I guess you could say, right? Because as we talked about, it's backward facing. But, I will say that the IC3 report is primarily U.S. persons reporting, but it's not exclusively. It is open to folks outside of the U.S., and they do have a lot of non-U.S. people from many different countries that use IC3 as a reporting mechanism, either because they're reporting activity that they think has a U.S. link, or it's dollar denominated, or they suspect the fraudsters were located in the U.S. Variety of reasons. So this does capture a snapshot beyond U.S. based activity, or U.S. based victims, I guess you could say.
Okay. Barbara also mentioned something I think that's pretty relevant here. She said Virginia shows up in the top 10 states by loss list, but not the top 10 states by the number of complaints list. And we're confident that people know to go to the IC3 with complaints. And, I'll be honest, before we started talking about this conversation, I had not heard of the IC3 or would have known to go there to make a complaint if I had experienced one of these things. So, I think more awareness probably generally is always, a remedy. But I don't know if there are other ways of publicizing this, or if, guys, you have thoughts about how we can encourage people to take advantage of this as a reporting option.
It isn't easy to report. At least it wasn't. A couple of years ago when we were living in California, a neighbor of ours came over to our house and her mother had fallen victim to a scam. I don't remember exactly which one. She wanted to know if I knew anything about this particular domain and a website. And I said, look, I can't look up investigations like that, but I directed her and her mom to report it to the IC3, and they had a real hard time, and they kept coming back and coming back. So my friend, the daughter, she said, I'm just going to do it for her. And she figured it out and took a little bit more time than she would have, but her mother had a harder time concentrating and seeing it and all that stuff. So, but I believe it might be getting better. I know that they've heard that feedback in the past, but I think that it is a little difficult for maybe those that are elderly to report. But keep saying that, and then hopefully we can get some more feedback to the Bureau, because they do listen to customer feedback. We are the customers, we're the tax-paying customers. So the more that we can get that, especially from a financial institution perspective, to say it's difficult on your website to do the following things, I know that there are groups there that go, oh, great, let's take that and try and fix it. If they do or not, I don't know, but I think they might.
All right. Well, great conversation, guys. Thank you, everybody, for the comments. I've got a really good comment from Eddie that I want to make sure that we share here. So Eddie says, we have to understand now that a ton more people are online. Criminals are getting better, scams are getting better, and old ones like stenography or hiding the message, like in memes, etc. People are not educating themselves as fast as the criminals are, unfortunately. And I think, Eddie, you're absolutely right. That's part of why we're here doing what we do, to help arm all of you out there with extra insight, tools, skills, or knowledge to be able to help your customers or your institutions try to stay a little bit ahead of that curve. But I think it's always an arms race, right, guys? Like, the criminals are always, I hate to say, a step ahead, but if not, leapfrogging in terms of our ability to detect and prevent these things, or what. But any comments on sort of the evolving nature of our relationship between catching these things and the criminals kind of leapfrogging above our abilities?
I guess I would just say, since I've been doom and gloom, I'll switch at the end here. Right. I will say that, look, it's not hopeless. Obviously, it's constantly a competition, and financial criminals by their very nature, can generally move faster than us, right? But, you know, a small boat can move faster than a battleship. It doesn't mean the battleship doesn't have some big guns on it, right? Like we actually have some big guns writ large as a financial crime prevention industry. And if you look at like what's happening where we started with the Scam Center Task Force, it's both the interdiction of the money and the interdiction of their resources and action on the ground where they're going in and just arresting loads of people in these scam compounds who are the perpetrators behind us. Like these guys are actually getting busted. Yes, it is an industrial scale operation out there and it's, you know, barely putting a dent in it at this point. There's a lot more work to do. And it took years to happen, but it's happening. And it can continue to happen. So it's not hopeless, right, by any means. And I think sometimes like a feeling of hopelessness is actually antithetical to the work we're trying to do. We can bring a lot of law enforcement, financial institution, tech company, telco, you know, power up against them, and I think we can hit them pretty hard. It's just a question of, you know, will and resources. So you know, don't lose hope. The numbers are bad, but that doesn't mean that good things aren't happening out there.
I think that's a great place to start to wrap it up. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. Thank you if you shared your questions, comments, insights. We'd love to see those. Make sure that you check out acfcs.org/events. I know we've got some great stuff coming up, including in June, we have one of our OSINT workshops. I don't see a specific date on that, but check the acfcs.org upcoming events tab. For that. That's going to be in June. Also,
that one got moved to August, just FYI.
That one got moved to August?
Okay. August 20th is a new date. Yeah. Okay. So
August 20th.
Look out. More to come.
For that OSINT workshop, those, I think people are loving those, and it's a super important skill. Also, I see a SAR writing fundamentals workshop, July. Is that still right?
September 24th.
Okay.
And guessing, Clayton.
And the big one, FinCrime Virtual Week coming up. Brian, dates on that?
FinCrime Virtual Week, August 3rd through 7th. If you're an ACFCS member, registration is already available to you. So if you log into your learning portal, go ahead and sign up now. We're giving our members first crack at sign up. And then starting, I think, next week, the general public will be able to access it. Also, you're hearing it here actually first before anybody. So this is your sneak peek at our 250th anniversary of the United States celebration for the month of June. So technically this starts June 1st, but I'm letting you all special friends in on it a little early here. 25% off of all training, including membership. As well as 250 off. I think you can see the connection there. All CFCS certification packages. USA 25 for membership and training is the coupon code. USA 250 on the screen here. You can see for CFCS certification packages. So you heard it here first. This is a really great opportunity to boost your career, get some additional training, and learn more about a lot of what we talked about today. So definitely take advantage of it.
And June 3 is a members only webinar, is about gambling with Derek Ram and Tom Mangine. June 3, that is next week. Don't forget that one.
Yeah, that's a good lineup. Two great speakers on that one. And a really good topic because when we talk about fraud, crypto scams, etc., gaming, gambling, huge exit strategy for especially crypto fraud right now. So definitely check that one out.
Yep.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. I got dropped for just a second, but Eddie, I want to make sure that we get that graphic up on the screen so everybody can see. There we are celebrating 250 years of the US of A, and we're giving you $250 off your CFCS certification package or 25% off all membership training and our digital asset compliance specialization. So look for that. You can see the code there, USA 250. And then is the other one, is that USA 25?
USA
Right.
25 for membership and training, right?
Okay, guys, there you have it. Make sure to take advantage of that. We'll put a comment with those codes in the comments here as well. That's supposed to be for all of June, but since you guys are our FinCrime Friday chat community, you're getting special access to it here. So, guys, we talked about the upcoming events. The only other thing that I wanted to add to that is that we're going to have our June FinCrime Friday chat. I believe that is on June 26th. Whichever day is the last Friday of June, we're going to be talking about the World Cup of Scams. That's going to be a fun one. Our partners from Arctic Intelligence are going to be joining us to talk a little bit about the World Cup of Scams, risk assessment, and some other really incredible stuff. So make sure to mark your calendars for that. That's, again, June 26th. And thank you, everybody who tuned in. Love seeing all of those pin drops from all around the globe. I think I saw Lebanon, Washington, D.C., Mauritius. I hope I'm saying that right. Anyway, people tuning in from all over the world, Iraq. We love to see it. We love having you guys join us in this conversation. Thank you so much. Stay vigilant out there and make sure you check out our upcoming events. We'll see you next time.